together from the community to talk about just to talk about Bitcoin Cash, because why not? Everybody loves a good conversation about the best peer-to-peer money in the world, if I say so myself. So today we got Scott Rose, David Bond, Oscar Salas, and Wecx, all members of the community, probably more focused on the community to talk about echoing really just to talk about Bitcoin Cash. I always echo myself, and so lost my train of thought. And these people are more involved in probably the adoption side of it rather than the technical development side. And so today we're talking about who needs Bitcoin Cash and where they are. So we'll start with introductions. We'll first start with who's on my top left, and that is Scott Rose. So welcome, Scott Rose. Let's give an introduction, who you are, how you got into Bitcoin, and then transitioned into Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, thanks so much. I am probably most well known for my comedy videos on Bitcoin that I did back in the day. They're called Shit Bitcoin Fanatics Say. I changed the title of them now. They're now called Shit Bitcoin Cash Fanatics Say. I did those back in 2014. Then I did a lecture that I gave around the country a few times called Bitcoin 101. It's now called Bitcoin Cash 101. That's all, and all those are on my YouTube channel, which is Scotty321, SCOTTY 321. Yeah, I got involved. These are from back in the day, those videos, 2014-ish. I got involved in Bitcoin around 2012, 2013. And I think that I originally got involved as being a part of sort of the libertarian community. And I was just starting to wake up to the problems of inflation and how the US dollar was no longer on the gold standard anymore. I was late to waking up to all of these problems that were part of the fiat money system. And right when I was having my waking up, Bitcoin came on the scene, and I just fell like head first into it and just kept going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And like you said, not really from a technical point of view, because I can't really read the code, but more from a philosophical point of view. And, my belief is that it's probably the greatest invention since the invention of the internet. And then of course, when the whole split happened, I truly believe that Bitcoin Cash carries on the original vision, the original spirit of Bitcoin. And so I followed, the movement into the Bitcoin Cash community.
Nice.
So that's sort of my story.
Awesome. David.
Hello.
Hi. Just give a quick introduction into yourself and into Bitcoin and then Bitcoin Cash specifically.
Sure. Yeah. My internet alias is David Bond. I have a YouTube channel, mostly travel vlogging, and I kind of stumbled upon Bitcoin when I got banned from PayPal at the height of my online business, and it was really traumatic. When this happened, a friend of mine made a joke that I should have started accepting Bitcoin payments, and I didn't know anything about Bitcoin, and so I looked into it, and I remember using it for the first time. And once I realized how useful it was and how it actually solved the problem that I had, I started attempting to integrate it with my digital products that I sell, and it started working, and just kind of went down a rabbit hole. And so now I'm on a live stream with you guys, pretty much.
Welcome.
And I've only been interested in this stuff for about 12 months. So before that, I thought it was all stupid. Anytime that people brought up Bitcoin, I'm like, dude, shut up. So I'm a newbie, I guess.
Cool. Awesome. Oscar.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hear you loud and clear.
Well, I'm a video animator from Venezuela, and I'm also currently executive director of Venezuela Workers, which is a platform where you can employ people from Venezuela using Bitcoin Cash. And I'm also managing Insta Bitcoin in Maracaibo, Venezuela, which is basically a platform where you can change Bitcoin Cash to Bolivares and USD. So that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm doing all the animation stuff with other companies like Sideshift and with other many companies, doing my usual work, which is video animation. Well, I started on Bitcoin like in 2016, and I just bought Bitcoin. I just well, I was reading about Bitcoin, and I decided to buy one Bitcoin, and I bought that Bitcoin. Then I bought more Bitcoin, and then I see that the price went up in 2017, and I was basically more excited about the technology because I was reading about it. And when it has this peak in by the end of the year, I started looking to Bitcoin. I started looking for other options, and I discovered Bitcoin Cash, which is a lot better than Bitcoin BTC for transactions. So that was basically the point where I decided to move to BCH, and I decided to well, initially I was offering my videos to the BCH community, and I managed to make some videos for the BCH community as well. For CoinSpice, they basically gave me the opportunity to do Bitcoin Cash videos at first, and then at that point I decided to invest all my time in Bitcoin Cash.
Nice. And so, Wex, I think people have like seen your name around, but I don't know if you've ever like shown your face. I mean, you're obviously a cat, so feel free to give your
You know,
introduction.
I might have with Soup before. If you were over there.
I think I remember like one video.
Yeah, now everyone's gonna be trying to like look on the internet for that video. Yeah, so my name is Wecx, and I got involved in Bitcoin by discovering sort of a free speech big blocker Slack, the BTC Slack, and so I got involved there. I'm currently kind of more in the mining scene, so I have a part of Digital Owls. I'm sure you've all heard of Ian Checksum. So I usually, work more on that side. I'm also an agorist, so I work with a lot of gray markets and sort of that type of thing. So that's kind of what my background is. It's more mining and more kind of like agorism type stuff.
Cool. And so we'll start off the topic here. So this is going to be very general. So I'm just going to open the floor to anybody. Why is BCH important to you, like you individually?
Well, I'm gonna take the question.
Yeah, go for it.
And well, basically I use it every day. In my case, that I'm in Venezuela, it's useful because I can save my money there without worrying about it being taken away from me, which already happened because I personally own bank accounts in the U.S. In Venezuela, it's not useful to save in bolivares, so I had the chance to travel to the U.S. A few years ago, and I made my U.S. bank account. So I had a lot of problem with that. My account was frozen several times, and I wasn't able to use my money. I had similar problems with PayPal. So basically, that was not the reason why I'm using Bitcoin at first. But now that I understand it, I see why it's useful, and Bitcoin Cash is useful for me because I can have my money protected from the government or the companies from being taken away from me, and I'm also able to use it for payments. So here in my city, I can use it to pay taxes, to pay food, to pay services. So it's very useful because I use it basically almost every week. Sometimes I use it daily in a week. So for me, it's useful. I also pay my workers with BCH, and they also use it for payments. So for me, it's very useful for that. And I think that's the whole point of this project, that you are able to control your own money and that you are also able to use it for payments.
Did you say you pay your taxes with it?
No. Sorry, my taxis. The taxi drivers.
Oh, taxis. Okay. I was like, well,
Yeah, because in Venezuela, in Venezuela you can pay your taxes with Bitcoin, but it's not a well-established platform so far. So no one pays taxes in Venezuela. No one pays taxes like anybody because here is no one cares about that. The legal stuff here is a mess.
Gotcha. And as far as Venezuela goes, is Bitcoin Cash like the best currency to use for you out there? Like, just like even one, obviously because of fees, BTC and Ethereum are basically out the window, and so next is, I guess, Ripple, and then you got USDT if you want to count that, and then Bitcoin Cash, and then obviously there's like Dash that also competes for the peer-to-peer cash. Is Bitcoin Cash just like the most adopted there right now, from what you see?
Well, in my city, it is maybe it is a fight between BCH and Bitcoin basically, but Dash is also sometimes used in my city. But in other parts of the country, like Caracas, Dash is widely used as well. So there's a competition between BCH and Dash if I generalize the whole country. And Bitcoin is also used, but the transaction fees are too high. So I think that not many people are up to paying, $2 or $3 to do any payments because they will prefer to do other type of. They prefer to use bolivares in that case. You don't pay fees to the banks in Venezuela. If you do so, it's so small that it's not something to care about. So I think that the fight right now is between BCH and Dash in terms of usage.
Gotcha. So open up to Scott or David or Wecx. Why is BCH important to you?
I mean, if you guys want, I can go ahead and go forward with that.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, my view is somewhat complex, and I don't want to misrepresent myself. So if I can spend, I know we're on start for time, but if I can use most of my time for this, I'd appreciate that, because Oscar here, is a friend and business partner of mine. He, of course, can express most of my views on other topics, but try and make it kind of short. But I kind of come from this from sort of, I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I'm a market anarchist, so that comes into play. And in order for me to kind of express my view properly, I have a couple concepts that I kind of have to put out there. Let's just start with one concept here, and that would be liberty and authority. Just kind of put that out there. And on the side of liberty, you've got markets, right? You have the freest markets, you've got anarchy, and then you've got authority, you've got, the further authority you go, you've got central planning, right? So just kind of put that concept out there: free markets and anarchism, and then authority and central planning and authoritarian governments, right? So put that concept out there for a second, just gotta throw it out there. Now take currency and money, for example. And I just kind of want to define that for a second, because a lot of people don't understand the difference between money and currency. So you've got money, which is the most marketable commodity, right? And then you've got currency, which is a substitute for money, right? And what we have today is we've got currency, which is what we know as this fiat currency, of course, government fiat currency. And then we've got, gold, which is like the most marketable commodity, of course, and you've got, silver. You can kind of debate that. So I'll kind of throw that concept out there for a second. Now you have Bitcoin. Now everyone's like, oh, well, it's a new asset class or whatever. And a lot of people think it's a commodity because they don't understand. And there's all sorts of things about that. But Bitcoin is a fiat currency, and it's a currency. It's not a commodity. It's a commodity is something that produces goods, physical goods, right? You can't use Bitcoin to create a physical good. So it's not a commodity. It's pretty simple. It's a currency, but it's a fiat currency. Now let's look at this objectively here. You've got the government fiat currency, which is fiat by the government. And then you've got Bitcoin, which is fiat by the market, right? So you've got currency that's been just, hey, this is a currency, it's the fiat from the market. And then you've got, the fiat, the government fiat, which is the government saying, hey, this is currency. So you've got the two separate sides, right? Now you want to tie all this in together, right, with liberty and authority and free markets and free market currency. You can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? So So you kind of tie all this together. For me, is as an anarchist, right? I'm seeing, wow, there's this currency that's governed completely by the market and completely by liberty, and there's no authority involved, right? Because Bitcoin doesn't have any. There's no rulers in Bitcoin, right? There's no authority in Bitcoin. No one makes the rules, and a lot of people are upset about that. They think, oh well, where's the governance, right? Well, I can talk about the governance later on how that works with the free market. But let's tie in like my viewpoint. As an anarchist, I'm an egalitarian also, so I believe in equality. And one thing I feel strongly about is equal access to finance, for example, equal access to defense, things like that. So I see, sort of my activism as far as counter economics goes. Also I'm egalitarian. So for me, it's very important for me to make people have as much access to finance as possible. And now you've got, free markets and free market currency. You've got maximum liberty, and that's important to me. So there's complex ideas, and I'm trying to simplify them quickly so you can understand them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the synopsis of that.
Sure. So you're more of like an ideological standpoint, rather than.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And Scott, I would say you're, from what I understand, that's kind of more in line where you are as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything that Oscar and Wecx were talking about are so important to me. In my talk that I give on Bitcoin Cash, I talk about the 3 important elements of Bitcoin that are important to me. And it's number 1, financial equality, number 2, financial innovation, and number 3, financial freedom. And I think all 3 of those combined together is what makes this such an important tool for liberty, for freedom, for equality, for mankind. And I think it's really a matter of people understanding how important this is. Oscar, you're living it firsthand in Venezuela, how important this is. And these are the traits that are really, really important to me. So even though I personally haven't been like affected by PayPal, like preventing my payments from going through, or so far I haven't been in a country that has hyperinflation, although the U.S. is getting there. Even though these financial issues have sort of not been a part of my personal life, they affect all of us, whether we have been personally affected by them or not. Like, for example, one of the things that really drew me to Bitcoin back in the day was that WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks, there was a global banking blockade against WikiLeaks. And I thought that WikiLeaks was doing a great job of exposing war crimes and government corruption. And you couldn't even send them a check in the mail because their postal mail was being intercepted by the government. So the only way that WikiLeaks was able to survive was through Bitcoin donations. And, there's all sorts of industries also that we don't think of that are perfectly legal industries that are, banned or hurt or harmed by the banking industry because of censorship and stuff. It's sort of like these industries that people don't really like to talk about too much, like the sex industry, the porn industry, the marijuana industry, stuff like that. For the most part, the banking industry has shunned those industries sort of in general. There are banks that work with them and charge extremely high fees and stuff like that. But, anybody who's sort of seen like on the fringes of society is also harmed by the banking system. Or, you type in the wrong thing into Venmo, for example, on your phone, because they're monitoring what everyone's typing into each other, and boom, you're blocked. You can't use Venmo anymore and your bank account is frozen. Those are some of the things that, although they've never, harmed me directly, I see how they harm other people. And the thing that I really despise the most about fiat currency, out of a whole list of things, there's probably 100 different things, is that it gives the government an unlimited amount of power, because, and it causes harm to people because they can print fiat unlimited and then they fund wars with that. And, you know, they harm people with it. They can do whatever they want with all the fiat that they're printing. And I love the fact that Bitcoin is, you know, it can't be printed out of thin air. Well, I guess like Wecx was saying,
it can be printed. It can be printed, but it's more difficult. It's more difficult because the hierarchy is flatter, right? You've moved further towards liberty than authority, and there's a hierarchy. There's no rulers. It's much more difficult in the market to make those changes.
That is a very great distinction. Thank you for distinguishing that. Right. It's more difficult. Although ironically, right, every time there's a split in a way, it's almost like printing more out of thin air. And
well, no, it isn't, but it's a different currency, so it's not this.
That's true.
You're not printing the same currency, right? It's a totally different currency. It's not printing more of the same thing. It's just a completely different currency altogether. It would be like if you printed US dollars, you wouldn't say you're printing yen, right?
Right. That's a very good point.
Right.
Do you think that for Bitcoin Cash to succeed sort of as a global currency, do you think that the other ones would necessarily have to drop and potentially be close to failure? Like, would Bitcoin BTC have to go all the way down in order for Bitcoin BCH?
That's not usually how people who are interested in markets think. You know, markets are about cooperation mostly, and voice and exit, right? Like you voluntary trade, voluntary cooperation with other people. So there's not necessarily some sort of thought process where something has to be destroyed. You know, zero sum thinking is a fallacy, right? Where one thing has to be, you know, everything, you know, where one thing is, you know what I'm talking about, zero sum thinking, right? Where like for one thing to be valuable, another thing has to be not valuable. Like everything can be, it you know, it doesn't necessarily one thing have to be destroyed for the another thing to be valuable, right? I was discussing this recently with a friend who was upset that there were activists holding up signs because why aren't they doing other things? Holding up signs is so pointless, right? And I said, well, what if they can't do anything else but hold up the sign, right? So how is them holding up the sign impacting the other things they could, you think they could be doing because maybe they can't do them, right? So it's still valuable that they hold up the sign. So zero sum thinking is a fallacy altogether. So that's kind of my opinion on that. I think a lot of people in the crypto space aren't very, you know, they're interested in Bitcoin because it's very interesting, but they don't have a professional type of viewpoint on things. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at any free markets, it's never zero sum. You know,
Right.
It's always split up amongst multiple players.
Right. Sometimes there's something that can't do anything else, and so it's still valuable that it exists. You know, because like here's an example with developers. This is a great example. Some people say, like, for example, with SLP is a perfect. So I don't think SLP is that valuable. I don't like it too much, right? But the developers that are working on it might not be working on the things I like if they weren't working on SLP. So obviously SLP is valuable altogether because if they weren't working on it, they might not be working on nothing. So of course it's valuable, even if I don't necessarily think it's valuable, right? Because if they weren't working on it, they're not necessarily going to work on what I want them to work on, right? Maybe that's all they work on and they quit completely if they weren't working on that. So zero sum thinking is a complete fallacy.
Sure. So let's move on a little bit, stay on topic a little bit. Wecx, can you turn your mic down a little bit as well? So going back to like the actual title of this, who needs BCH and where? David, you actually had like a reason for using Bitcoin, right? Because you were actually getting shut down completely by like PayPal and stuff. And so can you just kind of elaborate on what happened exactly there? Because I know, like what Scott said, if you type the wrong thing into Venmo, like they can kind of flag you. Like literally, I think if you in the description of Venmo or Cash App, if you write Bitcoin, like you can't even send it. Like wow. I've experienced that before. So yeah, feel free, David.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so for me, my first like interaction with Bitcoin was I got banned on PayPal, and at the time, PayPal was the only payment gateway I was using to sell. So I sell a variety of things. I sell access to digital programs, so like video products and stuff. And I also sell my time. So I'll do like consultation calls or coaching stuff. And when my PayPal got shut down, I went from making a lot of money to making nothing. And I attempted to sign up for another payment gateway. And I don't know how many of you guys have ever tried this, but there's PayPal, there's Stripe, and then there's everything else. And everything else is really hard to get into. I tried to go through a payment processor called Epic, and they wanted social security numbers, they wanted documents, they wanted access to every transaction I had made on PayPal going back 2 years. They wanted, and they on top of it, they wanted to send a specialist to my house to verify address. Right now, here I am. I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to sell things on the internet. Bobby wants to pay me $100 to talk on Skype. Why do you need to go to my house? And it was so annoying, And so when someone brought up Bitcoin as a joke, I kind of was in this emotional state where I was like, anything but this, And so he showed me how it worked a little bit, and he sent me a couple bucks, and I was like, so all I have to do is just show this QR code. And so as an experiment, I added a page to the bottom of all my digital products that pay in Bitcoin. And I basically offered people access. And then I got 2 people that did it. So now my Bitcoin wallet had like $200. I was like, yay. And then I was like, well, now what do I do? And when I found purse.io, keep in mind, I don't know anything. I'm just a guy. I don't care about all these cool things at the time. I didn't care about anything. And I found Purse, and as a test, I ordered, like a little item, and it came, and I was like, yo, wait a second. So people can zap a QR code, and then I can take that thing and then convert it into Amazon stuff. That's really interesting, right? And so I was already starting to take interest. And then what really kind of pushed me over the edge was there was a social media site that I was a part of called Gab, which is like this free speech Twitter clone. And they got banned off all the stuff. They got banned on PayPal. They even got banned off of Coinbase. They got banned off Coinbase, right? And I sympathize with people who get banned because I get banned all the time from things. And then they started doing Bitcoin. I was like, you know what? That's cool. Like, I want to see how they do it. So I bought Gab Pro, which is like, you're basically buying verification. You get a little blue check mark. And I just started getting into it. I was like, this is really cool. Like, what is this stuff? Like, what am I buying? Like, who's sending it to me? And, I just took an interest. And that's all it was. And then when the Bitcoin Cash stuff happened, it literally was just, I was living in Bangkok at the time, and I was walking down Sukhumvit Soi 22, which is the street my apartment was on. And I walked by a restaurant, and it said Bitcoin Cash accepted here. And I was like, what the heck? That's awesome. And I go in, and then I found out that they weren't accepting Bitcoin. They were accepting Bitcoin Cash. So I was like, well, how do I get Bitcoin Cash? What is that? And so I found a way to, convert some of my Bitcoin into Bitcoin Cash. And then I bought chicken wings. And I was so tickled. I was like, what the heck, man? Some guy scans a code and he's zapping money through the computer. And now I have this thing, and now I'm zapping this guy's code, and now I'm eating it. I'm eating this digital stuff. I thought it was so cool. So then I posted it on our Bitcoin, Reddit Bitcoin. And then I got banned, suspended, scammer, you're a loser. Just totally, and keep in mind, this is literally the only Reddit post I had ever made on any cryptocurrency subreddit. It was like, I'm just like a little kid, like, hi. And I was like, hey, I found this cool restaurant I ate. And they're like, loser, scammer. And I'm like, whoa, Jesus, why is everyone emotional that I had chicken wings? Like, it was so weird. So I discovered, oh, this is the Bitcoin. Oh, let me post on the Bitcoin Cash one. And then I got all this like, oh, cool. Where is it? Oh, that's so exciting. And then some chicks sent me stickers, and everyone was so nice. And I was like, well, they're really nice. And I'm not evaluating any of this from a financial perspective. I'm just, I'm thinking of it like, oh, I want to meet other people who think it's cool like me. So let me share it. And then I got like cyberbullied out of existence on the Bitcoin subreddit. And then they were nice, and I don't care. I didn't care if it was Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. I didn't care. I was just cool. I was just excited that I was able to convert my freaking Mickey Mouse tokens, my little Chuck E. Cheese digital fake money that in my head, that's what it was, into meat that I could put in my mouth. Wait, that sounds weird. Anyway, so then the stickers came, and then I found another freaking restaurant, and I was like, this is so cool.
This was Thailand, right?
Yeah. Now, where everything changed was when I was at a bar talking with some guys, and I was talking about this story, and then the owner was there, and he's like, oh, I've always wanted to accept Bitcoin, but I don't know how. So I set him up with, I don't know if it was AnyPay or Bitcoin Cash Register app or something. And then I posted it on Reddit that I onboarded somebody. And again, I'm not a Bitcoin person. I'm just a guy that, and when I did that, then a lot of people were like, oh, dude, that's so cool. Like, and it was just love. It was just love and positivity. And so, I was just like, this is cool. So I just started, taking interest in it. And my interest in Bitcoin Cash is less about technology and investment. It's more about the community. I like them better. Like Bitcoin people are all like, what you do is you buy it and you look at it. It's like they treat their currency like a goldfish. Like, I'm going to put it in a jar and stare. And Bitcoin Cash people are always like, dude, this is going to change the world, ending war, using it. It's just a better, cooler crowd. Not only that, but I'll be honest, when I look at the meetups for Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin, the only one that has girls there is Bitcoin Cash. When they go to the Bitcoin, it's all bearded like Linux guys, and they're like, arr. And then the Bitcoin Cash group has like girls. So it's just aesthetic. It's just like, why not? Basically
aesthetic. I like it. So, from your experience, have you like, do you know of, or like have a group of people that also like have been like censored from these Venmo, PayPals that you've kind of tried to shield this to? Or
well, I have a lot of really funny stories of people who are using Bitcoin in ways that are just funny. Like I'm friends with a guy who owes $100,000 in child support. And because of this, he has a lot of kids. Because of this, if he has any amount of money above $400, it gets taken. So if he deposits in his bank, it takes about 1 day, and then anything above $400, they just take it. So because of this, he can't really have regular bank account.
Yeah.
And also, if he gets a job, all the money gets taken away. When you owe too much in child support, you also can't have a driver's license. So he can't have a car to go to the job, and he can't have a job because all the money's gone. And so his only solution is to become a homeless man, right? So he decided not to do that. But now he uses Bitcoin because when he earns money, he just converts it to Bitcoin and throws it in Exodus. And, he's sitting on 10K, which he could never have in any other way because the system would confiscate it, So that's an example of someone who is like, this is not a game. Like, this is like, he needs this, Yeah. And when he wants to buy something, he uses gift cards, or he'll just convert it to BTC, send it to Cash App. Cash App charges like 1.7%. And then it goes to a Cash App debit card, which isn't in a bank. It's like in its own little thing. And it's, it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. That's a use case, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one before. That's definitely a new use case. Does anybody else have any like unique Bitcoin Cash?
Bitcoin Cash?
Or Bitcoin just in general for anybody here as well? Like,
sure. You mean like people that I know that had real? Okay, well, I'll tell you another one that was really cool. And this is not really even Bitcoin Cash specific. It's just crypto.
Yeah, crypto
specific.
In general, sure.
There was a guy who I met, and this was while traveling, and he lives in South Africa. He's a white guy, lives in South Africa, and I'm sorry, he's a resident of South Africa, and his bank account is in South Africa, but he's living in Thailand. And South Africa won't let him take his money out of the bank. Like, if he wants to be in Thailand, he can't like take his own money and put it in the Thai bank. They won't let him. It's like the South African laws or whatever. And it's annoying because they limit how much he can withdraw from his bank account with a debit card to try to prevent. They don't want money coming out of South Africa. But he's like, dude, this is my money. Like I earned it. Like I'm living in Thailand. I need my money to do stuff. My bank account is in South Africa, and I'm trying to not be in South Africa. I want to, and so for him, his plan, which I don't know if he actually did it, was he's like, I'll just buy a shitload of it. I'll just convert everything into Bitcoin or crypto in general, and then I'll just move it over here, and then I'll slowly, sell it or whatever he's doing. I don't really know what his plan was, but I thought that was really interesting because this he's not trying to get rich. He's just trying to live. He's just like, yo, like, I don't want to live in South Africa anymore. Like, hello, I got, 30 grand in the bank. I'm trying to live here. Like, let me have my own money. What, So that was his plan. And he was telling us, how he's going to do it in increments. And I was like, that is so cool. Like,
Yeah,
that is such a great example of like this being a utility
right.
that a lot of people don't talk about that. When I watch interviews with Bitcoin interviews, so rarely do you hear about like these interesting use cases that allow people to essentially like over, to like skip hopscotch over the government,
Right.
which that's what's actually the value is
Completely.
the utility.
Yeah, the censorship resistance, that's huge, and that can come in so many forms. And like you say, like going cross borders like that, it's
because there's no other way to do that.
Right,
What is he gonna do? Hey, let me withdraw 40K and let me put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
Let me go to the, because then you go over the border and they'll say, what is this? What is this? And they'll like, whatever they do. And then there's a chance they could there's even a story of a woman who she had she got an inheritance from a deceased relative. And she, I forget how the story goes, but she had like a bunch of cash and she tried to go from one state to another state. This is in the US. And they took her money because they're like, oh, we need to investigate. This isn't related to a crime. She's like, this is my money. Like, there's no crime. And my understanding is that she never got it back or that it took a long time to get it back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's a little bit different because it's in the US. She could have just put it in the bank. But the point is traveling with large sums of cash is just not, it's just not going to work.
You know what's interesting? Is my mic working?
Yes.
Better? Okay. What's interesting about everything you've said is if you want to
still turn it down a little bit.
Okay, let's try it. How about that?
Good. Go for it.
Okay. What's interesting about it just keeps going up as I talk. Here, I'll try and talk softer. What's interesting about what you said, if you look at it from like an academic sort of standpoint, where currency being a substitute for money, it's the only utility it has, since it can't produce goods, is a means of exchange, right? So that's the only utility that a currency has is means of exchange. And the market, people will say, well, why would you want the government to make cars? Would you want the government to produce the goods that you use? Everyone thinks the market makes goods and services better than the government, right? So of course it's going to make money. I mean, a currency even better than the currency the government provides, right? So here we are with this free market currency that can go across borders, that can do all these great things because the market is providing it instead of the government. So it's very cool that theory kind of lines up with practice, and we haven't really seen that before until now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like Oscar, like, I mean, you're just a prime example yourself of like people who need it. I mean, you're a video animator, you're very talented. I paid you to do video animations before, and there's literally no other way I could pay you. Like, especially somewhere from like the U.S. to Venezuela. Like, good luck trying to like get U.S. dollars to you. Like, good luck, right? There's literally no other way for me to pay you besides crypto and specifically, Bitcoin Cash because the fees and all that. So, yeah.
In the past, I used to just set PayPal and I as I said before, I was able to open my bank account in the US, which is right now is possible still if you have money to travel to the US. But a lot of people don't have money to travel to the US. They don't have the visas. They don't have the papers. They're in Venezuela. There's even problems with passport. So the government is not providing the passport. So you cannot even travel to any country. So So yeah, I decided to use crypto as payments for everything that I do right now because it's easier for me. I control the money. I don't have to worry about the banks taking the money away from me. And there's a funny story with a friend that he's working with me in Insta Bitcoin, and he traveled to the U.S. He opened a bank account in Bank of America, and he was pretty hype about it. He was happy, but I was already paying him with BCH, and he was using BCH too. But I told him, dude, it's just a matter of time till they close your account. And 2 months after he opened the account, it was closed. So he gave it no reason. Basically, they just closed it because we guess because he's Venezuelan. So there's a lot of problems between Venezuela and the U.S. So yeah, there's people with U.S. bank accounts if you manage to travel that still work. Myself, I own Wells Fargo still. I still have my Wells Fargo account. It's very limited. I can't use all the options, but I have most of my money, like 80% of my money in crypto because I feel safer. And I'm always scared to wake up and see my Wells Fargo account closed. And hopefully in the future, you can do more paperwork. For example, if I want to travel to another country, if I want to request visa, they often ask me for my savings to see how much money I have, if I can travel, and they provide me with a visa. Hopefully in the future, I can do this same paperwork with crypto because I think that eventually they will close my Wells Fargo account, and I'll have to figure it out what I should do. Here in Venezuela, there's some bank accounts that provide USD balance to save USD. But since it's Venezuela, a lot of people don't trust the banks here, so they don't put money there because they're scared the government can take it. So yeah, basically, crypto right now is the best option. I have a lot of stories of people that use crypto because it's the only option they have. PayPal take a lot of fees, for example. If they want to receive money, they have to pay like 6% of the transaction, and like most of the people prefer to use BCH right now if they know about it and if they are not scared to use it. There's a lot of people that don't use it because they don't know how to use it and they don't know the benefits of using it. So I think it's just a matter of time until they realize that crypto is better. Not only BCH. I mean, BCH is the best in my opinion, but like in general, cryptos, it's just a matter of time that people start using cryptocurrencies in general over PayPal, bank accounts, and all these other options because it is more secure. You have control of your own money, and you don't have to worry about the banks or the governments taking it from you.
We did get a question. Are there Bitcoin ATMs in Venezuela? Can you convert cash to crypto?
I hear there was one, but it's not. It's not in my city, but I'm not sure if it works. So maybe there could be in the future because the government is very open with crypto. But I mean, not so open. Like they are only trying to use crypto for their benefit, the benefit of the government, no, not because the benefit of the technology. So here in Venezuela, there's national exchanges. The government is trying to control crypto mining, and they will maybe allow more Bitcoin ATMs in the future, but they will maybe try to regulate that to have more control over the people and to maybe take fees from that transactions. So maybe there is one, but I wouldn't use it just because privacy.
Yeah.
I would rather use Bitcoin, local.bitcoin.com or anything like that. Or Insta Bitcoin in my case. I own that with other people in the space, but yeah, obviously peer-to-peer markets are obviously the best option, and Insta Bitcoin provide that, and that's very good because Insta Bitcoin is there. When people realize that Insta Bitcoin exists, they start using it, and they feel more that the money has value because they can change it to Bolivares and USD. So that's why it's important to provide liquidity and provide option to exchange, because people can feel the money that they receive, this virtual money, has value because they can exchange to Bolivares or USD. So yeah.
Yeah. For me, like, I thought all this was so dumb until I found Purse. I remember back in like 2016, like right when the bubble was about to happen, I had all my friends were like starting to get into Bitcoin, and it was fun to watch, but like they just crumbled when I asked the most basic questions. They're like, "Oh, Bitcoin's so cool." Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "Okay, so what do you do with it?" They're like, "Well, you just buy it and you look at it." And I'm like, "Okay, so you buy it for the purpose of selling it?" Like, that's like, what? And I'm like, so, okay, if I have a phone and I have Bitcoin in it, and my mission on the earth is to use it, tell me what to do. And they're like, oh, and everyone failed. But the moment that, years after all this, when there was a utility and I saw a problem that it solved, and then I discovered that I could, at any moment, if I wanted to just convert it into something like an Amazon purchase or a hotel or whatever, then I'm like, well, it's basically as useful as money. Because the moment that people can discover that they can convert it into something, when I say convert, I mean like take it and exchange it or convert it or turn it into something of value that's valuable to them, then the idea of holding it is easier, because like a good example is someone sent me a bunch of spice tokens, and I don't get it, but apparently whatever I got was worth $3. And I looked at SideShift and I looked at Change Jelly. I looked at all these services I used to convert it. I couldn't find one. So to me, it's worthless because I don't know what to do with it. Like, okay, it's $3. Like, if I ever at any point wanted to move it to something that I can materialize value, maybe you guys can help me.
You use it to appreciate things on Telegram.
Okay, well, I guess I have 10,000 spice, but
it's a lot of appreciation.
That's how I viewed like Bitcoin before I found Purse and before I found like Travala and stuff. And now that I know that's out there, they became useful, became interesting. Because I always thought the idea of buying Bitcoin was stupid. I'm like, I don't want to buy it. I want to earn it. I want someone to give it to me. You know what I mean? Because I'm all about being under the radar. I love that. Like, there's something sexy about like no one knowing something about me. And so when I sign up for an exchange and they're like, take a selfie, I'm like, no. Like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'd rather just earn it by convincing someone else to do that, and then just giving me their crypto in exchange for something of value. You know what I mean?
I think you've got a really firm grasp. I know you say you're a regular guy, but you're also a businessman, so you kind of understand the relationship between money and people. But general acceptability is the most important quality of money. You can have all these other qualities and they're great and everything, but if nobody accepts it, then it doesn't matter how good of a form of money it is, right? So
yeah, and that was a big thing. Is a big move that I did recently is I stopped accepting fiat payments. So I do Skype calls and dudes pay me like $100 an hour and stuff for stuff, and I stopped accepting PayPal. I stopped accepting all of it. They're like, I don't want to do Bitcoin. I'm like, well, then you're not going to get it. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this because I hate chargebacks. I hate the fees. I hate all of it. And I'd rather just make less money and just never deal with that again. Like I've had thousands of dollars in chargebacks. And do you know how there is nothing I want to do less than wake up, sip my coffee, and convince Visa and write letters. Hello, here's the IP address of the individual. It's just so annoying. Like, I don't want to do it, Not only that, but with the crypto stuff, it's just easier. It's like I don't have to tell them anything. It's just like, here's a QR code. Lately, I've been using my Cointree as a way when, if I'm doing any kind of exchange, like I'll sell access to Telegram groups. There's a bunch of stuff that I sell. And instead of dealing with, what coin, what address, I just send them my Cointree. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Cointree. The Naomi, what's her name? Naomi
Brockwell.
No, yeah. I've never heard of it.
What? Cointree is like Link. Have you guys heard of Linktree?
No.
So Linktree is a website that allows someone to put all their links in one place. So, for example, you'll see a lot of like e-girls do this. They're like, click my Linktree, and it's like OnlyFans, like Cash App, and they.
Oh, I'm not familiar. Yeah.
Well, Linktree is a way of doing that,
Or
but
like
it is crypto.
or like musicians.
Yeah. So instead of sending someone your address, you send them a link. I don't know if I could show you.
Oh, I get it. You send them a link, and then it's got all the links essentially.
Yeah,
You send
right.
them a link, and it's like Bitcoin Cash, Monero, and so then they can just type in the amount, hit enter, and then so you don't have to do the whole what's your address? Here, let me send you a penny first to make sure it's the right address. You don't have to do that game. You just send them one link.
There's technically a checksum that would prevent you sending it to the wrong address. I mean, but most people don't know that. They're too afraid. But you can mess up a little bit. But yeah, you can definitely send it to the wrong address.
Here, I'll put it in the little chat thing. So I don't know if you guys can. Did you guys see that link?
I'll pull it up.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and also it allows you to send messages. So if you guys click it and you click messages, you'll see, people are typing in messages. Some of them are me. I'm saying I'm sexy and stuff. It's a test. But yeah, it's so much easier to just be like, all right, here's a link. You pick the coin, you pick the address, you deal with it. And then when I get it, then like, hey, another problem I hate having is when you do Zelle payments, it tells people my legal name. I don't want them to know my legal name. You know what I mean? Same thing with PayPal. If they pay you as a merchant, the fees are high. But if you do peer-to-peer, it tells them your legal name. Same thing with Venmo. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want people knowing my legal name. Then they're going to go on one of those background check websites, which has happened to me. They pull up my name and they start looking at where my mom lives. And it's like, why do I have to reveal this? Why should you have to dox yourself to send money? Like, like even when you buy something online, I don't know if you guys, this bothers you. It really bothers me that if I want to sign up for anything that involves money, I have to tell them where I live. What is that? It's like, okay, so if I want to sign up for Ty Lopez's freaking free trial of his whatever, or if I want to sign up for some crazy, free trial of something, I have to like tell them my first and last name and where I live. Like that's uncomfortable. And like, that's another attraction to this, that I can just do this. I can just go push buttons and it just does it, no doxing here come, because one of the things that I do is I'll buy my competitors' products to watch it so I can spy on them. And then they know because they can see. It's like, I hate that, So I'll have to have my buddy be like, hey, can you buy it? And I'll give you the money just so they don't know it's me. It's like, why should I have to even reveal? I don't know if I'm making sense, but
No,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, one of the ways that I actually used to convince people to use Bitcoin Cash, I had a friend that he was so against crypto for some reason, and maybe he never take it seriously. But then he's from Venezuela, so he knows he faced all the problems in the country. So I told him you could use BCH to receive payments. And then I tried to explain him how Bitcoin works, and he didn't care. Then one day I told him, you can buy Xbox Live gift cards with Bitcoin Cash. And he told me, really? And then I showed him with BitPay that you could buy Xbox Live gift cards. And that time he told me, dude, how I send all my PayPal to Bitcoin Cash, because I'm going to save all my money in Bitcoin Cash now. And that way he realized that the cryptocurrencies has value, because he managed to turn crypto into other things, into products, into he even used Purse. After converting his money in BCH, he started using Purse, and he bought stuff from Amazon to Venezuela. And I never used Purse myself. Then he sent me a message and he told me, dude, I just bought a couple of stuff with Bitcoin Cash using Purse.com, Purse.io, sorry. And I was like, seriously? And he sent me photos of the stuff he bought. So I agree that one of the main things is to, if you want to give people reasons to use Bitcoin Cash is to prove them that Bitcoin Cash and the cryptocurrencies can be traded for things, and you can exchange that for services and products. So that's one of my ways to actually onboard people to use Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, for sure. Scott, you have anything to add over there?
Yeah, I think David was really hitting upon so many of the problems in the legacy banking system. It's sort of like like the typing in, doxing yourself when you're buying things. And I think that's one of the other super cool things about Bitcoin in general, which is that you're pushing payments to someone else. You're not pulling them from someone.
Right.
So, like in the US, we're still handing over our credit cards, for example, at restaurants, and people take your card, and then they have your credit card number. They have your security code. I don't know why it's a security code when you have to. What they call the security code when you're giving it out to everyone. How can it be a security code, right?
Because you have to turn it around.
Exactly, you got to turn it around. And but what's so amazing is that's one of the many reasons that the credit card fraud is so high in the U.S. There's other reasons as well, of course, and it's like with once someone gets your number, they can use it over and over again until you catch it. And with Bitcoin, you are in control. You are sending it to other people. My overall concern in general about adoption is because I think merchant adoption is the most important thing because like Oscar was saying, like everyone was saying, that people have to know that you can spend your currency somewhere. The more it's accepted, the more widely it's accepted, the more valuable that currency is, because that you can go anywhere and spend it. And my concern is, in order for us to get the biggest, the most merchant adoption of all, do we have to actually convince people of all these problems with the banking system and the fiat system and stuff like that? Because, for example, if you talk with your local restaurant owner, and I've tried to talk to many of them to accept Bitcoin, and maybe in the US, because the banking system is so robust and it services people, so well in general, people they're not quite as, they seem sometimes not quite as responsive. My question is, do we need to find like-minded people like us to get merchant adoption? Because I feel like, yes, Wecx?
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
So I'm sure anyone who's been in business knows a little bit about your regulatory liabilities, right? I mean, you've got all these regulations you have to follow as a business. You've got to deal with the banking system and all these other things. And a lot of people, who I talk with, we say money or currency is technically just liquidity, right? Bitcoin Cash is the ultimate vehicle of liquidity. Okay, it's a pool of liquidity you can draw from that's almost free, right? Now, with these big corporations, right, who have these huge legal departments, they create laws that create barriers for small businesses, right? The best way to undermine these giant monstrosities, right, is to out-cooperate in order to outcompete them, essentially, right? So the way you can do that is that you can access this pool of liquidity for way cheaper than the corporations can do with the legacy business system, right? So what you can do is you can actually compete with corporations much easier if you use a free market currency, right? Because you're pulling from this liquidity pool that's essentially free to pull from, right? You don't have to deal with wire transfers, KYC, all these laws that the corporations have to deal with. And it puts you on a level playing field, right? This is where kind of the equality comes from as far as I'm looking at, right? So now you can, now you don't need a regulatory department. You don't need to deal with the banks, right? So, the big giant corporations, they can do all that because they make these laws that make it more difficult. So I don't think we need to find like-minded people necessarily, because people like David, who are businessmen, already know. He's already out competing. He already sees he can outcompete his competitors. He already sees that he's got this ability to do that now because his regulatory overhead is non-existent. He's got perfect liquidity, and so I don't necessarily like-minded people. We just business people know when they, you know what I mean, and that's kind of my viewpoint of that. I don't need to convince someone to be a libertarian to use Bitcoin Cash. You know, so that's kind of my opinion on that.
So in the case of talking to a business into it, the thing is, it has to solve a problem for them, right? Now, some business owners, they're just open-minded. It's kind of fun, but it has to solve a problem, or you have to communicate that this is a way that they can make more money, you know? And the truth is, in most Western developed countries with, you know, relatively stable banking systems and like laws to protect you and stuff, it's not the easiest sales pitch. You know, business owner, they just want to make money. They don't care about anything.
I agree with you, David. In fact, I'm not even interested in the West because I'm not interested in Western economies. In fact, because I'm more interested in developing countries competing with Western economies. So everything that I had just mentioned to Scotty is, you know, I believe that developing countries can outcompete industrialized countries by accessing a better liquidity pool and going to, you know, you've got the legacy banking system, which makes it almost impossible for these countries to compete. Right. So now they're going to be able to use a better form of money to compete with, you know, against the legacy banking, against the US dollar, against, you know. So I totally agree with you. Like, I'm not really too interested in the Western economies necessarily. I'm more interested in developing nations because they're the ones who can really benefit from competing with these government organizations, you know, and tyranny and things like that. And I think that, you know, I agree with you. I think that, you know, mostly this is going to stem from the developing world. I don't think, and the way I look at that too is I like to look at kind of like the world economy and how the Western economies are importing so many goods. And I think a lot of these are like industrial, small countries that are going to be, you know, industrialized eventually are going to be, you know, they're going to be exporting goods to the West, right? And eventually they're going to be able to really have leverage. They're going to say, hey, well, here's our preferred currency. And you know, of course, they're going to want to sell it, but, you know, eventually they're going to have way more leverage in order to go against the legacy banking system because they're going to, you know, they're going to have this adoption and whatnot. So in my opinion, the West isn't really going to be affected until the developing countries adopt cryptocurrency and then force it on the West, essentially, because there's not going to be no other way to import the goods, essentially. I mean, I'm thinking like kind of like further down the road. So that's kind of my like extrapolation of how I think things are going to happen. Of course, I do believe that the internet is probably going to be the first place where adoption is in general, obviously, because it's easier than physical stores.
Yeah, it's easier. I found it way easier to talk businesses, online businesses, and do it. Because like a really good example is I remember having people reach out to me. They're like, yeah, I'm in China, and they basically spy on everything I buy. And I'm like kind of scared. So if you accept a crypto, that would be really cool. That was like, you know, so an easy sales pitch. You could just say, well, listen, there's people out there who, you know, it's just one more payment method that you'd have just a percentage more people who would use it or whatever.
And I consider China kind of more of a developing nation. Really, you know, I don't consider that a Western.
Also, the no chargebacks things, that's easy. Anyone who sells anything on the internet, that's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. The internet is definitely going to be where everything happens first, and I think that's the given in my opinion.
I totally agree that the West is not as much in need of it as the developing countries. You know, I think that in the West, I think we have a different opportunity, you know, and you're right, absolutely, with the chargebacks and credit card fraud and PayPal blocking, all that definitely affects the West. Very, very important. But I think we have another opportunity in the West, which is these innovations that Bitcoin Cash can do that fiat can't do. And I know this is almost thought of as almost like a secondary use case, but things like one of my favorite things for Bitcoin Cash is read.cash, you know, which really has solved, you know, this problem of content creators having difficulty putting out articles and getting paid for them without, you know, resorting to advertising. And I feel like things like that can really onboard people who might not even be merchants at all. You know, people who are just like, oh, I want to write some content and get some money for it. And, you know, anything involving microtransactions. I think that this is almost like sort of I almost call it like a backdoor in to say, hey, these are all these cool things that you can do with Bitcoin Cash that you can't do with the banking system.
Scotty, you really hit on something that I want to extrapolate on, and that one of the opportunities that we have in the West is we have access to capital, and that access to capital means we have the ability to invest in the infrastructure before anyone else. It's just that way, right? We've got more access to money, and so we can, as entrepreneurs, we can set up a kind of a first mover advantage into this new system. So that's kind of our advantage. We can build Read.Cash, we can build liquidity exchanges, we can build all these things. You've already seen it, right? Like most of the infrastructure is from Western countries, and so that's our opportunity. But I still believe that the developing nations will probably adopt it first, and the plebs in the West will probably have to just go for it, and then everyone in the West that put the capital into invest in it will be, moving to South America one day. You know what I mean?
Cool. So I think we're gonna do some closing thoughts here, and as a closing question, my question is, how do we get? So everybody we talked about, how do we get these people to onboarded? How do we get these people to use Bitcoin Cash? People that probably need it, but they don't know it yet. Like, is it more video content online? Is it local outreach? What do you think is like some of the best ways to do that?
Well, I'll start. I think the best way is to provide information that you can convert. I think it's providing liquidity just in general. So I know a lot of people say, well, I think the only business opportunity is exchanges. And, a lot of people say that. Of course, it's not necessarily true, but it is going to be the most important thing at first, because you're going to have to provide some sort of incentive for people to use the cryptocurrency. And the best incentive is convertibility. So, obviously you need to get the information out that, you exist in order to do that, that you exist to convert it. But setting up liquidity is definitely super important. And I don't mean just any type of liquidity. I mean over-the-counter liquidity. Centralized exchanges, I believe, are, kind of a no-go. So that's kind of where we're lacking, is over-the-counter. So if anybody wants to help, what they can do is they can go to local.bitcoin.com and they can just sell something or buy something, because in the end, if you really want to help, you have to provide over-the-counter liquidity in any form just to do it. Like, if you put up an ad saying you'll sell $100 or you'll buy $100, because if you really want to be to spread everything, you need to provide liquidity. And if you're not providing liquidity, then you're not. I mean, you're not going to. People aren't going to want to use the currency because they can't sell it or buy it and exchange it for other currencies. So that's going to be the most important thing for anybody to do, is just provide over-the-counter liquidity in general.
Yeah, I agree with Wecx. In Venezuela, for example, there is Dash doing talks here, and sometimes not in Maracaibo, but maybe in Caracas, which is the main capital of Venezuela. They do talks, they do events, they do that kind of stuff. Maybe Bitcoin, BTC as well. Some Bitcoin maximalists do talks and stuff. But the most important thing is liquidity, because you can try to sell them Bitcoin Cash as anything you like the best shit you ever hear before. But if they can't find options to trade it for Bolivares or USD in Venezuela, they won't use it, because they won't see value in something they cannot exchange to what they think is normal money. So for me, liquidity is the most important thing, because if you have liquidity, they can exchange and they will see value in it. And for me, the most important thing is to grow liquidity at the point that they can ask a friend and they can exchange USD for Bitcoin Cash. In Venezuela, for example, the USD market is basically over the counter, as Wecx says. If that's the term, I don't remember, but OTC. It's basically OTC, the USD markets. For example, if you want to sell USD in Venezuela, you just ask a friend. You don't go to an exchange. You only send a message to your friend and you ask him, you want to buy $100 from me if you have bolivares? And he replies you, yes, of course, and you exchange that. It's like a black market for the USD. That's basically how every people in Venezuela do trades. So I want that. In me personally, I want people to have the same experience with Bitcoin Cash, that they can go ask a friend, hey, do you want to buy 100 USD in Bitcoin Cash for bolivares or USD? And I want that. And that's my aim. That's what I'm aiming with Insta Bitcoin, to create that type of relation, because we offer the same service in Insta Bitcoin. You go and you send a message to us, and we provide you with the price of the BCH, and we tell you how much, and we add a special fee. So I want people to have BCH, and I want people to ask their friends, to their family, or any other people that they don't know, if they can buy or sell BCH to them with them. And that's the most important thing. I want that. I want that the people doing that to buy and sell BCH, because that's the only way I see Americans actually taking seriously. It doesn't matter if you say BCH is super cool, you can do zero fee transactions, you can do all the stuff. It doesn't matter. They only care if you can change it to fiat for now, or to other currencies. Okay, so that's the most important thing in my opinion. Maybe if you put them some educational videos about Bitcoin Cash and that stuff, that's pretty good. That's good because they understand the technology behind. But in reality, people don't care about technology. They don't care how it works. They just care that it actually works. So that you can tell that you can feel safer here because you can save it. The government cannot take it from you. They don't care about that. They just care that they can use it to receive and send payments. And of course, fees are important. But in Venezuela, you can transfer. For example, there's a lot of people who sell here in Venezuela. The U.S. bank service called Sell, and you can basically do free transactions between accounts. So there's a lot of people that sell USD with Sell, and that sounds weird because Venezuela and people having U.S. bank accounts, but it's very normal actually. It's very usual. So for me, the most important thing right now is to offer liquidity. Otherwise, people won't see value in it. And then after that, people can value other things like security and transaction fees and any other benefit from cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, definitely.
Oscar-
OTC. The OTC liquidity.
OTC. Yeah.
Oscar, are people in Venezuela concerned about the volatility of BCH, or is the volatility of BCH so minor compared to the volatility of your own country's currency?
Yeah, people here prefer to use obviously Bitcoin Cash if they have the option. If they only have the option to use Bitcoin Cash and bolivares, they will use Bitcoin Cash because it's more stable. Only a few days ago, the bolivares price went down again horribly, and almost 100,000 bolivares. So it basically went down almost 50%, and it only in a few days. So bolivares is obviously not a good option to save. It's a horrible option to save. But Bitcoin Cash is more volatile in terms that it goes up and down every time, and bolivares maybe maintain its price for a few days and then crash again. But Bitcoin Cash maintains better price stability in terms of price long term and mid term and short term, because Bitcoin Cash won't go down 50% from one. Well, maybe it could, maybe it could, but it's not that usual compared to bolivares. And the other positive thing is that cryptocurrency can go up as well, and maybe they can go up 20%, 30%. So from one
The Bolivar
from
doesn't
1
go up.
year, yeah, bolivares doesn't go up. They just go down, down, down. Yeah. So they prefer bolivares. But as I told you before, this sounds weird, I know, but a lot of people in Venezuela have bank accounts in the U.S. They have Chase, they have Bank of America, they have Wells Fargo, and maybe if only one member of the family has a bank account, all the families start using that bank account. They basically share the bank account between them. So they manage to use the bank account to put USD there and to buy and sell USD in black markets. Actually, Cell is very concerned about Venezuela because a lot of people is using Cell in Venezuela. And for example, Wells Fargo removed Cell from Venezuelans because they were abusing from using Cell. For example, sometimes I use Cell like 5 times a day only to buy stuff, food and shit from supermarkets because Cell is accepted everywhere. You know what Cell, right? This interbank transfer in the US.
Yeah.
So Cell is widely accepted here. And it's weird because, it's Venezuela, it's not the US, but, Venezuelans managed to figure it out how to jump the system. And they tried to get one family member to go to the US to open an account. And that they only care to have a bank account in the US. So what I want to do is offer with Insta Bitcoin. I want to offer every people the opportunity to join the markets with Bitcoin Cash because you don't have to travel. You only open a wallet in Venezuela and you're ready to accept payments and all this stuff. It's maybe not the most stable currency because it goes up and down every time. There's a lot of people scared about that, but it's more stable than the Bolivar is. So you have that option. And if you join the cryptocurrency space, you also have the stable coins, which is an option, for people to if they don't feel safe putting money in Bitcoin because it goes up and down a lot, they can maybe use the stable coins. But my mission is they only use BCH. That's my mission. We will see what happens, but we're trying the best to add liquidity in the market so people can change that to Bolivares mostly and make it usable for people.
So the question is like, how do you get people interested in Bitcoin Cash, right?
Yeah, the people that need it. Yeah, how do you
Sure.
shill it to them?
Yeah, I mean, usually I just chat about it a little bit, and then I just say, hey, download a wallet, and then I'll just give them like $1, $2, and then I'll talk about like, don't you think it's pretty crazy that I just sent you basically money and you didn't even, there's no ID, no registration, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just share cool stories of this being useful for me. And that's usually how it starts. And then what happens is the Bitcoin.com wallet, it gives them alerts when the prices go up and down. So all of a sudden, like, maybe like a week goes by and then someone's like, LOL, that dollar you gave me is now $1.10 or whatever, and then suddenly they're slightly engaged with it, right? And that's usually when I'll get messages like, hey, so how do I get more? How would I buy more? And then I'll usually tell them the difference between, I always just say there's the big Bitcoin and the small Bitcoin. That's what I always say. And I just make everything super easy and dumb.
For sure.
And the cool thing is, once you educate someone on how to go in and out of fiat and into crypto, and then they can do it, now suddenly they'll accept payment as. So an example is I have a buddy who I hired to make some stickers for me, and he had a wallet that I gave him a long time ago and gave him $5 like 6 months ago. And then I'm like, can I just pay you in Bitcoin? And because I blab about it so often, he has a Coinbase, and he knows in the back of his mind, he's like, well, if I ever want to get dollars, I could. So, and then he accepted it. And then all of a sudden, the more people that, like now almost all my friends have a wallet. And so when we're doing lunch and stuff, it's just easier to just go ding ding instead of like,
it to me today.
yeah, I gave her $1. I was showing her the Bitcoin tip thing, like the gifts.bitcoin.com.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just easier to baby step. What I think is a mistake is when people, they start going into these like long rants about all this technical stuff. It's like no one cares, like it has to be relevant to them first before they'll listen to the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like politics, people have all these stories of how they change their political views. And a lot of times the stories involve something that happened to them, you know, like something tragic or something like crazy. Or classic example is I have a friend who his views on guns changed because he was living in a city where a lot of this like rioting happened and the defund the police thing. And he suddenly saw, wait a second, this whole time, my argument was like, why do you need all these guns when you could just call the cops? And now people are saying, let's not have them. So it's like, that was an emotional punch in the face. And then suddenly now when you talk about, I'm not trying to get political or anything, but it was something that happened to them and it's relevant to them. Right. So if you can, you know, you just give someone a little bit of crypto for free. I always give someone $1 or $2, and you know, I'll do it in BTC and in BCH sometimes. And then suddenly they get these alerts, you know, and then they're becoming interested. Or maybe you're at lunch and then everyone's paying each other with the QR code and they're the only one who isn't, and they look lame. You know, it's like that kind of thing. Yeah. I personally find all that to be pretty effective. At least a baby step, you know?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. The classic Roger way, just give out free money.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Roger do it, and we were in Indonesia. He gave everyone tips, and then like a couple days later, like they're like, well, yeah, I watched 1 million videos on it. I was learning about it. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's how it goes, you know? Someone has this and they're like, what the hell is this? Like, how does this work? And because they have value now, a little bit of value that they want to use, that it's kind of like, it's almost like you're paying them to learn about it. You're like, here's $5, figure it out. And they're like, well, now what do I do? What do I do? And I think that's a powerful way to introduce someone to it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Scott, you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I think that exactly what David said, you know, it's when you can solve somebody's real life problem, they start paying attention if they're having a problem. And what I do is I listen to what people are complaining about with the current money system. If you start paying attention, right, which I know that all of us do, you start realizing that people are complaining about the fiat or the banking system all the time. People, you know, I was sitting with a client and a chargeback came in right on his computer, right as we were sitting there chatting, for example. Or, you know, I work with international companies, and for them to get money to me, it's like, you know, $20 or $30 for them in wire transfer fees, or going to transferwise.com costs them a ton of money. And they complain about those fees. And when you start hearing people complain about these things, other things like, oh yeah, I deposited this money, but it's not going to be available in my bank account until Tuesday because it's a long weekend. You can start hearing these little things about the banking system, you know, credit card fraud, anything. There's all these little red flags that you can hear when you go about your life, and they're opportunities to jump on and say, you know, with cryptocurrency, we can solve this right now. I could send you money right now internationally, instantly and for free. Or I don't know if you knew this or not, but there's no chargebacks if you're using Bitcoin Cash. So I think that there's opportunities all around us at any given time to educate people. I think it really is going to be one of those grassroots efforts from like all of us. It's funny because I've been in the computer industry. I do database development, and I've been in the computer industry a long time back, you know, starting in the 1980s. And at the beginning of email, it was very similar to this. I was trying to get people on email, and this is pre-AOL, you know, and people were like, Scott, why in the world would I ever sign up for email? You're the only person I know who I would ever send an email to. And it was a matter of trying to, explain whenever there was some sort of a problem with something. You say, see, this is what email would have solved. And it was a slow process. There was one guy that said that email is just a fad, because he goes, this is back in dial-up modem days. He was like, I got to get online. I have to wait for my computer to connect to a BBS system. Then I have to compose this message. Then I have to hit send. It's tying up my phone line while I'm doing it. And And I was like, wait, but you don't understand. This is instant communication globally, wherever you are. It just took time. But the reason I bring up that whole email story is because it took people like me and you guys and anybody watching this actually communicating to people, no, this thing is actually better. This thing actually is going to change your life. This thing actually is superior. It's so, I really feel like it's up to all of us to sort of spread the word. And Colin, you're doing an incredible job with everything that you're doing. I'm super thrilled about the documentary you're making, Breaking Bitcoin.
Yep, that should be awesome.
But you're doing a great job of educating people. Every week, your numbers are growing more and more and more. And I really think it's just a matter of time, as long as all of us keep communicating the value. And like what David was saying is giving it out to people, showing people. I think once you experience it, like it's an experience that you can never forget. When you're receiving it for the first time, or you're sending it to someone for the first time. And then I love what Oscar and Wecx were saying about we need to be the liquidity in the world that we want to see. Like I'm going to go on local.bitcoin.com today and buy something from somebody, or just to become the liquidity in the world. So I really think it's up to each one of us to keep spreading the word, and I think it's a matter of time.
Awesome. Yeah, that was some great closing thoughts. I think we'll wrap it up completely here. If anybody has an urge to say anything, ready, set, go. If not, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all so much for joining me. You all had very valuable insights, all from slightly different perspectives. So I definitely appreciated it. So again, thank you all for coming on the show. Thank you everybody for watching, and go Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah.
Go peer-to-peer cash.